Watch this.
In an election year, party affiliation matters when you head to the polls, but a proposed bill at the State House would require you to make a decision on affiliation well before Election Day. It's a time-honored tradition in the city of McCall, celebrating Mardi Gras in the dead of winter in an Idaho resort town. But, as is becoming tradition, COVID, it's canceling things. But what about the Winter Carnival? You know, a lot of us lean toward food when we're stressed, and that can do a number on our shape. So I guess we do have something in common with the latest planet found way out in space. Welcome to Potato Planet. If you do any reading into Idaho election law, you'll find a lot of nuance there. And one of those intricacies involves party affiliation. For example, to vote in a general election in Idaho, you don't need to register with a certain party. But you can also choose to register at the polls if you want to. For the general election, that is. Primaries, those are a bit different, at least for the Republican version. In Idaho, only registered Republicans can vote in GOP primaries, and you have to register as such months before. The Democratic primary, pretty much wide open. But now 2 Idaho lawmakers say they want to change that, saying they want to even the playing field when it comes to party affiliations and the date by which you need to register. Joe Paris examined this bill with lawmakers to break down what it would and would not do.
Heading into election season in Idaho, if you are a registered Republican or Democrat but looking to change parties ahead of an election day, there is a deadline you need to meet. Before the May primary, for example, this year affiliated voters would need to re-affiliate by March 11th. But there is an exception to this rule.
There's an exemption in the law for unaffiliateds, and unaffiliateds can currently stay unaffiliated all the way up until and including Election Day and change any time during that time frame that they want.
That's Republican Senator Mary Souza sitting with Republican Representative Caroline Troy. The pair has a new bill that would make the party affiliation deadline the same for all registered voters.
It just makes the rule the same for everyone. All the major parties and the unaffiliateds must re-affiliate if they choose to by the same date in March, that last date of the filing period, which I believe this year is March 11th.
But what about new voters to Idaho who are not yet registered? Representative Troy says nothing changes with that.
If you're not a registered voter and you want to register at the poll, which in Idaho, that is allowed and encouraged. So if you're not a registered voter, you can still go and register at the poll on election day, whether that's the primary or any of the election days, and say your party affiliation at that time.
So why is this legislation being brought now? The co-sponsors say it's about leveling the playing field for all voters, regardless of political beliefs.
This is just correcting something in law that is unfair and that gives a special rule to one group of people over the others. And there are 4 registered parties in Idaho, not just Democrats and Republicans, but Libertarians and Constitutional Party as well. So all of those parties, if any of them want to switch around, it has to be done by March 11th this year.
Party affiliation in Idaho is mostly symbolic, but it does have a few major features. For example, per Idaho Republican Party rules, only registered Republicans can vote in their primary elections. Idaho Democrats do not have the same rule, but they are allowed to implement the rule if they chose to. So, is this about preventing Democrats from changing parties ahead of the competitive primary in May? Representative Troy says no, this doesn't change the rule for already registered and affiliated voters.
So if there's concern that the Democrats are going to switch parties and vote in the Republican primary, they already have to do this before the end of that date already. So it's only the unaffiliated. It's not changing anything for the Democrats or the Republicans. It's only changing for the unaffiliated.
Right, because they have the exemption.
The bill is early in the process. It still needs to clear both the House and the Senate to become law. If passed and signed by Governor Little, though, it would go into effect right away per an emergency clause.
Okay, Joe, I want to clarify something I said going into your story. So if you are unregistered, you can go to the polls on primary day and register for either party, whichever one you vote in. So you mentioned that, emergency clause, which means that would go into effect if this passes and signed by the governor before this primary season even begins, right?
Correct. That's right. And really, again, this is just about unaffiliated voters. And we've talked on this program about the idea that some Idaho Democrats may be changing their party affiliation so they can vote in the very competitive May primary. Again, though, this wouldn't affect those people because the Democrats or constitutionalists or the libertarians, there's already rules on the book saying you have to have your party affiliation done by that March 11th date. This just covers those unaffiliated voters, people that may have been registered in Idaho for a long time, but they never affiliated with the party. If you are one of those people, keep a close eye on this if you are interested in voting in the Republican primary, because as we touched on, you do have to be a registered Republican, and there will be these deadlines. But Brian, it is early in the process. We're going to be keeping a very close eye on this in the debate as it gets through the House. But it's really an interesting idea that we're tracking. We saw a lot of information on social media about this, so we wanted to dive in and hear from the bill sponsors really what it does.
And as you mentioned there, it is kind of leveling or trying to level the playing field a little bit to make both parties or all four parties the same. But there is that cry that says, you know, when you're taking that decision away from the party themselves, which right now they're the ones who make those decisions.
Yeah, so we'll see where this goes.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe. After floating back and forth between the lower courts and the Supreme Court for more than a few months, Supreme Court issuing their final ruling on 2 federal vaccine mandates issued by the Biden administration. Kind of a split decision here. First, the court voted 6-3 to block the rule that would have required private businesses with more than 100 employees to force those employees to get vaccinated, or they would have to wear a mask and undergo weekly testing. In that decision, the Supreme Court said the Biden administration did overstep its authority, which is what Governor Little said when he signed on to a lawsuit with several other states challenging said mandate. In a statement today, he, along with Attorney General Lawrence Wasden, put this out. The state's actions led to the highest court's ruling today upholding Americans' freedoms, and it affirms our position that the government cannot wield such power in private sector decisions. Yeah, taking it out of those hands. OSHA had estimated the rule would save 6,500 lives, prevent 250,000 hospitalizations over 6 months or so. However, businesses can still mandate those mask-wearing policies should they choose to do so. Still a private business, still able to make those decisions themselves. They just won't have the courts to back them up necessarily, or at least there won't be a federal mandate that follows that. It wasn't all roses for those against vaccines, though. The court also voted 5-4 to allow the law to remain in effect for nearly 20 million healthcare workers at hospitals and facilities that treat Medicare and Medicaid patients and get money from the federal government to fund those. Little called the decision disappointing. Second part of that, he said it intensifies a problem confronting our country. We already have a short supply of healthcare workers available to handle the pandemic. A third vaccine mandate aimed at vaccinating federal contractors continues to make its way through the court systems as well. The good news, only 1,900 COVID cases reported yesterday. That's because it's down from a record 2,300 we saw the day before, so that is a little bit brighter. The bad news, more than 16,000 cases still waiting to be processed by the state of Idaho. So with this sudden and steep increase in cases across the state, the city of McCall is announcing today the annual Mardi Gras parade. They're going to cancel it this year. The Winter Carnival, which was canceled last year because of the pandemic, they're going to go ahead with those plans. It's still open and still happening, starting at the end of this month. Katya Stepovic has more on the decision to cancel the parade and what you can expect from this year's Winter Carnival.
It's been 2 years since people packed McCall to dance in the streets. But now the event that brings over 60,000 people to the city is back somewhat.
With Omicron spreading so rapidly, we just had to eliminate some of those events that really put the big crowds all in one spot. And the parade is that.
Most indoor events will be scaled back and moved outside. Popular attractions like fireworks and ice sculptures, they'll still be there.
What we're just asking is that you be aware of just the amount of people around you. Stay outside, bring your mask, and plan to socially distance and have a great time while you do it.
The main reason for canceling the parade? Case counts. Take a look at this graphic. Valley County cases began rising rapidly at the end of December. On January 10th, the county hit its highest 7-day moving average ever at 145.
You know, when people ask us why even have the carnival at all, it's something that we have struggled with internally. I'll be really honest. It is a hard decision for us. We represent local businesses. We want to do what's best for them. And bringing a lot of people to town, in theory, is good, but in a pandemic, may not be. And so we really struggle with that.
According to Mackenzie Kramer, McCall Chamber Director of Marketing, even when the event was fully canceled last year, the city still saw a 30% increase in overnight stays. So turnout, not a concern.
Is that people will come regardless of whether we say Carnival is officially on or officially off. Yes, we are in a very major surge, and that is highly concerning to us. We also feel slightly more comfortable this year just because vaccinations are readily available, different treatments are readily available, and most people are pretty well versed at how to protect themselves.
This may not be a big surprise for a lot of people, Katya, as you well know. A lot of people that live there have even told people if you don't believe in masks or vaccines, stay out of the city of McCall. They've been pretty stringent about mask wearing in that town, but this is a big event for the businesses in McCall, right?
It's a huge event for a lot of the businesses in McCall, and frankly, Mackenzie tells me that people should be prepared to see some of these businesses close early and some choosing just not to stay open for long hours. A lot of McCall businesses are still so short-staffed, as many of us know, and some of them have strict protocols, and people just simply need to respect that. So that's going to be looking a lot different this year.
Yeah, and if everything kind of goes the way things are looking, it'll be back next year. The McCall Winter Carnival is here to stay. Yeah. It's a blast. But we'll get to it next year with the parade. But still a fun thing to see. All right, thank you very much, Katya. Look, up in the sky, like way up in the sky. That's a potato? No, it's a planet that's shaped like a potato. You know we had to look into this one, right? Now's the time to connect with us. Grab your phone and save our number, 208-321-5614. Feel free to send us your questions, your comments, or any thoughts you have about the show. Just make sure to include your name and the hashtag #the208. And as always, at the end of the show, we're going to share as many as we can. Scrolling social media last night, and I saw this headline: a potato-shaped planet has been discovered. And I was like, yeah, tell me more. Inverse.com wrote up a story about how astronomers discovered a planet with one of the most unusual shapes ever seen, they say. Apparently, back in 2014, astronomers first found this exoplanet and called it WASP 103b because it was near its home star WASP 103. But they noticed it was pretty close to its star, like less than 20,000 miles away. For some perspective, Earth, on average, is 93 million miles from our home star, the Sun. And being that close to a star can do some things to those around it. Think Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. Excuse me, yay. Anyway, this planet, which is known as a hot Jupiter, not another reference to Kardashian, it's because of the time it takes to orbit around its star. And in this case, less than a day. A couple other things scientists learned about this planet. It's about twice as big as Jupiter, and because of its proximity to its star and its orbit, it had an oblong shape, like a potato. Why are we just finding out about this? Because those scientists just wrote a really cool paper about it for the Astronomy and Astrophysics Journal. And if you're looking for some light reading, with a lot of big words and explanations and equations and stuff, have at it. But to understand it better, to peel it back, so to speak, To get to that starchy goodness, we reached out to Chris Anderson in Twin Falls. He's the coordinator of the observatory at the Harrod Center for Arts and Sciences at the College of Southern Idaho. He tells us it's pretty unusual to find a planet shaped like a potato, at least to this degree.
All planets that orbit any body at all are going to be somewhat elongated. So for example, the moon elongates the Earth. As the moon goes overhead, believe it or not, the ground beneath your feet rises by about 6 inches. Now, you don't notice that because it happens over a 12-hour period of time, right? So it's a very gradual thing. But yeah, so this is just that taken to an extreme degree. Because this planet is so close to the star that it orbits, it's really being stretched by those tidal forces.
Okay, so the other thing that is stretching it, Earth orbits the sun, our star,
right,
in 365 days.
Right.
This one orbits its star in 22 hours.
Right. It's 50 times closer to its star than the Earth is to the sun. Pretend for a moment that this planet was the size of the Earth and it was orbiting a star like our sun. It would be experiencing 125,000 times more tidal force than the Earth does.
It's like, how fast is that going?
Oh boy, yeah, that would be a difficult thing to calculate off the top of my head. To give you a sense of scale, I mean, our Earth goes around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour. So it's going to be a lot faster than that.
But Chris did some quick math for us, and he determined that the potato planet cruises around its star, which is represented by this basketball here, at 500,000 miles an hour, which is about 7.5 times faster than we do.
You know, we don't really notice the sort of centrifugal effect of going around our sun. I'm guessing on that world, it would be fairly noticeable.
Okay. The other thing, the potato planet doesn't rotate around its star. The side that's always facing the sun, blistering hot. The other side, freezing cold.
Now, it's a Jupiter-like world, so it has no solid surface on which to stand. So as potatoes goes, it's a pretty squishy potato.
It's a hot one, too.
It's a very hot one, at least on one side, yeah. It's not going to be very evenly baked, I'm afraid.
That's true. But crispy, which is how we like them.
At least on one side, yeah. And probably frozen on the other.
Like it was created by Mr. Simplot himself, frozen and fried. And it's relatable. How many of us can identify with being pulled into a potato shape by stress, right? I'm sure. Apparently, finding a potato-shaped planet is pretty rare, though. Another one they found is currently being ripped apart by its star, mashing it, if you will. Space, it's a cold place, man. So why does this matter? Well, finding something like this helps us understand how planets and solar systems form. It's not in our solar system, by the way, this potato planet, but it is in our galaxy. And Chris tells us it's about 1,200 light years away, about as far away as the most distant star that you can see without a telescope. By the way, we are now taking submissions for what to call this supersonic spinning space spud. Hard to miss if you're driving around downtown Boise. So why exactly are giant emojis all over the Jump campus? You have any questions for us? Well, we're still waiting for you to send them to us. Text us now, 208-321-5614. Remember, include your name and the hashtag the 208 so we know it's meant for us. And feel free to tell us what else is on your mind, more of what you want to see here on the 208. And stick around, we could share yours at the end of the show.
Well, we're starting out with this in the weather. Keep in mind, air stagnation advisory until Saturday at 3 and likely is going to be extended. I am sure it's going to be extended into the beginning of next week. A lot of it is what you're seeing on the radar right now. Here's Boise. Rotating to our south is some moisture, a little bit of snow in Canyon County. I don't think we're going to get much out of that if we see it, but just in case, just so that you know. Now, the purpose of this, or which we're looking at this, is when it comes into the valley, it's adding moisture. Now, when the temperatures clear out tonight, which I can show you here on the Futurecast, here's illustrated here. You can see it moving through the area, that very light snow. So now there's moisture in the atmosphere at 8:30 tonight, then it clears out. When it clears out, it condenses, and that causes the moisture in the atmosphere to cause fog. And there it is. This is throughout the day for tomorrow. It starts in the morning. I think it'll kind of break up in the afternoon. And then the inversion starts the layer of the upper air. As you can see, these high clouds move over the top. That's the warmer air trapping the colder air at the surface. So keep that in mind. So tomorrow, we're about 40 degrees. So we have the air stagnation advisory through Saturday, which will likely move into next week. As you look here, I don't see any changes. Temperatures will be in the 20s at night. Highs will be in the mid-30s. We'll start it with fog. We'll likely start developing some fog later in the evening. For some of you that have been around the valley here, that's a very familiar tune. Then as we get more toward the end of next week, we still can't identify a strong enough storm, but we do see some storminess. So toward the end of next week, we hope to get enough vertical mixing as well as gusty winds to make some changes for us, we hope.
It's worth spreading. It's a kind of something that is contagious, but also lifts people's spirits and makes them feel better. So it's important for us to lift people's spirits and make them smile during these especially difficult times in the new year.
Obviously not talking about COVID there. That's something we kind of want to stop spreading around, right? Instead, Kathy O'Neill from Jack's Urban Meeting Place, what we call Jump, let's make laughter contagious again. And if you've driven by Jump in downtown Boise in the last week or so, you've likely seen those giant yellow emojis just all over the campus. Yeah, there it is. There are 24 of them, we're told, from giant ones hanging off stairwells to smaller ones that are just kind of perched on light posts. You'll find everything from the laughing one to the crying emoji to the winky face one. There's the crying one. Laughing, crying, right? You will not find the ever popular poop emoji, though. So why are we putting out all these emojis? Well, it's part of Jump's Giggling for Good campaign.
Laughter has really been proven to fuel positive energy and create new connections. It truly is contagious. When somebody else laughs, you laugh with them, and it helps reduce stress and improve creativity. So there's a lot of reasons to kick off this new year with some giggling.
You have until the end of this month to get your giggle on and check out these giant yellow emojis before they are deflated. So spread laughter, not COVID. And that is kind of one of those from the Department of News that doesn't make you go, ugh. One of our favorite parts of the show here, where we get to share the text message you sent in during the show, like this one from Bruce. Maybe the best solution for Republicans is to open their primaries, he asked. Just kind of go back to where anybody can go vote on either side. I probably have a fault with that. Again, the way the Idaho law is set up right now, the state Republican or the state parties can decide what they do with their primaries, open or closed. The Republicans closed theirs back in 2012. So that you have to register as a Republican to vote in the primary. Republicans should choose who is going to be the Republican candidate. Democrats, a little bit more wide open. Speaking of the Republican primaries, Governor Little running for another term, asked Ginny. He hasn't really officially declared yet, Ginny, but we do know that he is fundraising, so there is a chance still before March, maybe he can decide and let us know whether or not he's going to be officially on the ballot for that primary. What laws does Idaho have in place to prevent vaccine mandates by private businesses? I have heard fines were going to be put in place. It's unclear what Idaho laws are ready to be enforced regarding vaccine mandates. None right now, which is kind of the way they wanted it, because they don't want even the state government telling private businesses how they should run their business, and that would include what they require of their employees. Brian, isn't the potato planet circling Uranus like some of our... Okay, here we go, Steve. Had to come in, right? Had to come in with the Uranus joke. I gotcha. Yay for the potato planet, says... Well, oh, is that Dan Quayle texting us in finally? That's nice. We got several name suggestions for the potato planet. How about Spud Lightyear? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Somebody said we should send up Spudnik to explore it. Right? Oh.